Hi y'all, so today I am doing my top 5 books of 2017 and I will have a photo of the books here and a link to the Goodreads of that specific book that I mentioned in the description box below. I did get most of these books from the library because most of my reading this year came from either books I already owned or books I read through the library because of my financial situation. So I don't actually have physical copies of I don't actually have a physical copy of any of the books on this list. I will start with 4 honorable mentions, and I'm just going to briefly whiz through these because I thought they were really, really good, but they just didn't quite make the top 5. One was Emma and the Night by Wendy Walker. I gave this 4 stars. It was a fantastic thriller. It focuses on a girl named Emma who comes back after being gone for 2 years. And her sister is still missing, and so you're trying to discover what happened to the sister who was also missing. And there's talk of mental and physical abuse, sexual abuse was in there, and then also narcissistic personality disorder. If you're looking for a good thriller, I highly recommend that one. Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna McGuire is also an honorable mention for me. I did give this one 5 stars. It's about these kids who go into portal realms such as the Chronicles of Narnia, into Narnia, and then they come back and then have to deal with the fact that they can never go back to this magical land that they felt they truly belonged in. And so it's kind of learning to cope with that and learning to live back in our worlds and be satisfied with that. There's also a murder mystery, and it was just fantastic. I ended up reading the second book in the series, which is Down Among the Sticks and Bones. I really enjoyed it. It did talk about gender roles, but I didn't enjoy it as much as Every Heart a Doorway, and I gave Down Among the Sticks and Bones 4 stars. For my next honorable mention, it's another 4-star book, and this is Under Rose-Tainted Skies by Louise Cornell. This focuses on a girl named Nora who has agoraphobia and OCD. The author herself also has agoraphobia. I'm not sure if she has OCD. And it was fantastically well written. I love the mother-daughter relationship. I also love the therapist-patient relationship, along with the love interest. I love that. I thought it was cute, but it was not a love cures all and not like a instantly this is cured sort of a situation. I felt like it was very realistic, and it was just very heartwarming, and I loved it. Another 5-star book that made my honorable mentions was Witchwood by Tahara Mafi. This is the second book in the Furthermore companion series. I have not read Furthermore, but I still loved Witchwood, and you can totally read one without reading the other. Witchwood follows a girl named Layla, who her job is to wash the dead bodies to prepare the spirits for the afterlife. This is based on a Persian folklore, I believe, and Layla herself is sick, and it just kind of focuses on her and her job and kind of the things that she's gone through in her life, and it was so heart-wrenchingly beautiful. It's like one of those hauntingly beautiful reads. It is a bit darker, so although it is a middle grade, you might kind of want to keep that in mind if you're going to get it for a younger kid, just how much of that they can actually handle. But I loved it, and I now really want to read Furthermore. Now, on to my top 5 books of the year. I will be starting at my least favorite to my most favorite. At number 5 is A Princess Saves Herself in This One by Amanda Lovelace, which I absolutely loved. And the second book in this series is coming out this year, in 2018. I did give this 4 stars. You might be wondering why a 5-star book was on my honorable mentions and a 4-star book is on my top books of the year. Something I think was just missing, but it wasn't enough to take it off of my top 5 books of the year. I absolutely loved it. It's a poetry collection, but it reads like a novel, so you need to read it in order, unlike other poetry collections in which you can kind of go in and read poems in any particular order. It deals with female empowerment. It talks about abuse, the lasting effects of mental abuse, grieving, family, what love actually is, what a negative relationship is. It was wonderful. If you're a female, you need to read this. If you have a female in your life, you should get this for him. It was that good. At number 4 is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. This is a 5-star read for me, and this follows a boy named Connor whose mother is terminally ill with cancer. And it really follows him through his grieving, and how grief affects you even when the person is still living with a terminal illness, bullying, and how there's not a right or wrong way to grieve. There might be an ideal way, but that doesn't mean you're going to handle it that way. And it was hauntingly beautiful. Try to get the book with the illustrations if you can. If you're going to read it from the library like I did, mine had the illustrated and the movie tie-in edition. I highly recommend the illustrations because I feel like they added to the story. At number 3 is a nonfiction, and this is The Raqqa Diaries: Escape from Islamic State by Samir. This was not a feel-good book. I was very infuriated when reading it. I was upset. I cried. I was speechless at the end. But it follows a Syrian who lives in a part of Syria that is controlled by ISIS. And it's at their capital. And he basically has a death warrant out for him. So it shows what living in the Syrian civil war is actually like for somebody who's living in it, and how there was kind of all of this hope for change for the greater good, and kind of how things are now. It also talks about how the Muslims are even upset with ISIS and how they're using this religion as justification for what they do, when people who actually practice the religion and actual religious leaders would never do these things. At number 2 is The Inexplicable Logic of My Life by Benjamin and Larry Sands. This is kind of written in diary entry, and it just follows a guy named Sal and his life in his senior year of high school. It talks about grief. It has great family representation. It talks about bullying. It talks about what it's like to be a child of a parent who is gay. It shows negative parent-kid relationships without glorifying them. It has great friendships, and talks about the negative effects of drug use, and it was just fantastic. You need to read it, is basically what I'm saying. If you've read any of his other works, let me know which ones you recommend, because I absolutely love this. And at number 1, which should be no surprise, is The Hate U Give by Angie Thomas. Literally my expression when anybody does not mention this as their top book, unless there is some other major impacted work, I'm like, especially when they mention a Cassandra Clare or a problematic new adult, I'm like, really? You put this halfway through your list? Because it was that good. It has so many themes. It follows a girl named Star who witnesses her best friend getting shot by a police officer, and everything that entails, from the media coverage to having to testify, choosing whether or not she wants to testify, what it's like living the Black experience, and how that's even different based on where you live. If you live in a poorer neighborhood versus a richer neighborhood. It talks about the prejudices whites have against Black, and also what Black prejudices against the whites, because it is very much a two-way street. However, it talks about what being born Black, problems you will face that somebody else wouldn't face being a minority. And I thought it was well done. I can't wait to read On the Come Up, which is her newest book coming out in 2018. Let me know what your favorite book of the year was, especially if you have one on your list that was not on mine, and maybe I'll check it out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye, y'all.